दिल्ली में बैठी हुई सरकार ने वादा किया था कि 2009 में उन्होंने कहा था कि अगर हम चुन करके आएंगे, सरकार उनकी चल रही थी, फिर भी कह रहे थे कि अगर हम चुन करके आएंगे तो 100 दिन में महंगाई कम करेंगे। कहा था ना, कहा था ना। डीजल का क्या हुआ? पेट्रोल का क्या हुआ? मित्रों, गैस हो, पेट्रोल हो, डीजल हो, हर प्रकार से महंगाई बढ़ रही है कि नहीं बढ़ रही है?
Folks, welcome BBD Fast and Furious. Yesterday it was all about the economy, continues on the same vein. I think everybody listen to some sane voices about what is going to happen, what we are facing, rather than delusionally keep hearing these headline news, whether it is coming Joxy, coming back, or whether it's 2 billion doses by the end of the year, or whether it's a 400 million doses ordered. Really, it cuts no ice. Really, cuts no ice. What you hear is smarter voices. I know you guys don't like. A lot of you guys may not like him, but he's a smart guy. A bigger calamity awaits us. That's what P. Chidambaram has to write. He says, if you thought the second wave of COVID-19 was the first crisis that you will confront in your lifetime, you may be disappointed. He says, however, there is one thing about the future that is no longer uncertain. It is about the economic condition of the people of the country. It will be worse than it should be. Inequality will increase and the vast majority of the people will be poorer, deeper in debt and unhappy. The best we can do is to assume zero growth in 2021-22 and hope that the ultimate outcome will be better. Okay, so here are these numbers, big numbers. We lost potential output of roughly 2.8 lakh crore in 2019-20. We lost 11 lakh crore of output actual in the first year of the pandemic 2021. Assuming zero growth, the GDP at constant prices will remain at rupees 134 lakh crore in 21-22. Since India should be growing economy and assuming potential growth of a modest 5%, there will be a notional loss of output of rupees 6.7 lakh crore that should have been added to the GDP. These numbers add up to a loss of output of a colossal 20 lakh crore in 3 years. Okay. What does it mean? Such a magnitude of output losses in 3 years will mean loss of jobs, loss of income wages, loss of savings, loss of shelter, loss of investment, loss of education, loss of healthcare, and many other losses. We are on our wing, folks, without a prayer at the state, and absolutely nobody guiding, no smart person guiding the ship. We have no captain on the ship, folks. So what else does Chidambaram say? Listen to the GDP Bell store. He says, conclusion 1, the growth rate of the economy has been on a decline since Q1 18-19 and 2021 ended with a negative growth of 7.3%. Okay. Conclusion 2, private consumption has been the main pillar of GDP for many years. In an economic slowdown or a recession, if the proportion of consumption is stagnant, not rising, it means that the people are consuming less. Okay. Conclusion number 3, most Indians have become poorer. They are poorer today than they were 3 years ago in 1780. Okay. Unemployment rate that was 5.48% in June 2018 has once again spiked to 11.86%. The labor force participation rate has fallen from 42.87% in June 18 to 40.4% in March 2021. Not very encouraging. And then, what does Maithil Ghusunurmath write? The GDP, the bad and the ugly. There is no good. Government of India must spend on vaccination, cash transfers and infrastructure for any hope of economic revival. And just remember, the US is putting in place a $6 trillion package, folks. He says, with that caveat, what do the latest GDP numbers tell us? Sadly, nothing encouraging. Data for 2021 and Q4 2021 mirror the havoc wrought by COVID-19 on economic activity. However, a closer look at the disaggregated numbers show there is little to cheer. Sure, 3.7% growth in Q4 GVA is an important over the nominal increase of 1% in Q3 and the sharp contraction of 22.4 in Q1. But the improvement is not sufficient to change the narrative for the year. Folks, on the contrary, barring agriculture, which continues a stellar performance, growing at 3.6% in 21, and electricity that grew 1.9%. Every other sector contracted during the year. The contraction in trade, 18.2%, construction, 8.6%, mining, 8.5%, manufacturing, 7.2%, is particularly ominous as these account for the bulk of jobs, especially low-skilled ones. First, the foremost address the immediate health crisis through aggressive vaccination. We wasted too much time and we continue to do so. Second, make cash transfers to those at the bottom of the pyramid, especially those who have lost their jobs due to the pandemic. We continue to give free food, that's okay. But you really need cash transfers to up the demand, right? Three, increase spending on infrastructure. Maybe not. Unfortunately, right from the time COVID hit us in March last year, Government of India has preferred to act through the financial sector, especially public sector banks, in the form of loan guarantees and RBI rather than spend outright. And this has been their biggest fault. Just get everybody in debt and more in debt, right? Ironically, Government of India's cash balance at the end of 2021 stood at 22.5 lakh crore, almost double the norm in recent years. There is only one word to describe the fiscal response to COVID to date. Is silly animals. How many of you people know that this is our cash balance and it's twice what we generally have, right? The COVID crisis will likely lead to increase in inequality across the country. The more the vulnerable cohorts are left behind, the greater the risk of social, political and geopolitical instability in the future. Contrary to the finance minister's statement on May 31st to the Times of India, there is every need to rush with a stimulus in response to the second wave of COVID, folks. Let not Sita Raman sit on her dainty backside and tell us that we'll take some opinions. They really don't know what to do. That's the problem. You've got to have smart guys and you have to have smart people. Don't go with a CEA, that Subramaniam fellow who's just nothing but a weak parrot. Here comes another dose of reality from another guy. But first of all, let me just tell you, right, as my Thurley wrote, one of the sweet spots is agriculture. But in ferment, right? The farmers are up in arms, and here again, thousands of farmers march towards Delhi. And that was yesterday. Farmers are headed for protest sites in Singhu, Tikri, Ghazipur borders to intensify the stir against the center's 3C. So this sweet spots only work for the big traders like the Adanis, the Ambanis, exporters, but not the farmer really, right? So they are not given in, and this is your sweet spot. And you've got it in ferment, you've got it in absolute, you're twisting your tail, you're not willing to get out because of your egos, right? Sitting in an echo chamber. But that's what Modi is anyway. I mean, we figured that out. But here's another one. Let's take this. Diminishing prospects. You remember this guy, Pratap Bhanu Mehta, got run out of that university just why? Because all the weak links in the promoter group who were like scared of this government and money coming in because of his attitudes and his opinions. But that's that. Just shows the weak part of this. I mean, no institute, whether it's private sector, public sector, is immune to these nefarious designs, right? What does Pratap Bhanu Mehta write? Diminishing prospects. A bleak triad of slow growth, shrinking middle class and rising poverty stares us in the face. He says, India is staring at the prospect of slower growth, rising poverty and a shrinking middle class. This is the first time in a generation that India is experiencing something like this. Instead of moving towards being a high middle income country, we will be relieved if we do not slip further down the global ladder. Remember. But all of these trends are now in reverse. Growth has slowed, and it would be a brave economist who has any analytical basis for projecting what India's trend growth rate will be over the next 10 years. We are on a wing and a prayer. Okay. Then we say what? 2020 estimated that almost 230 million Indians have fallen back into poverty after lifting 270 million during Manmohan Singh's time. Okay. A new Pew Research Center report published before the second wave lockdown suggested that the Indian middle class has shrunk by about 32 million people in 2020. That's a lot, folks. Lots of demand. And we don't have serious numbers of shrinking incomes or on the possible effects of the long-term morbidity. That's what's happened now. There was, tear-jerking reporting by NDTV. Reality, all the families across UP that have lost their earning members. And that is going to be, and what did all the women be saying? They've lost their earning members. Bhagwan ke bharose. And that's the problem. Not Bhagwan ke bharose. We should be government ke bharose. But government doesn't want to do it. They've conveniently basically fobbed off on Bhagwan. Now this is Bhagwan's business, right? They're too smart, right? The Sensex is rising, fueled by global free money. There is a lot of excitement about unicorns. They are certainly a testament to entrepreneurial dynamism and ingenuity. But the idea that they are the backbone of a thriving economy is exaggerated, man. Hugely exaggerated. There might be a limited progress on distribution of private public goods like gas and water, but these cannot take away from the fact that from the first time in a generation, young India is looking at a bleak future that their parents did in terms of employment and income. It is a remarkable fact that this fundamental triad of slow growth prospects, potentially shrinking middle class and rising poverty has been kept out of public political consciousness. Obviously, they're going to keep it out of political consciousness because they know they're going to get hammered for this, right? The poor in India were always invisible, but the degree of economic and ideological obfuscation such that even the normally influential middle class's tale of economic uncertainties have become invisible. That's kind of very, very sad. What should worry is not just the trends, but the fact that we are not worrying enough about the worrying trends. The top 1% have been benefit enormously from the current economy, especially the stock market, and the Adanis and the Ambanis and Baba Ramdev. Devesh Kapoor has made this powerful point that taxing the super rich a bit more, those have made extraordinary gains over the last 2 years, even if temporarily should be done. 1 million plus COVID deaths is an extraordinary catastrophe, but the prospect of long economic stagnation should also give us nightmares. We are in completely uncharted territory, folks. Completely uncharted territory. Just do remember that. So, folks, needless to say, we are staring at a bleak future. Firstly, the deaths are uncounted. Vaccinations is just a fairy tale story. But the reality is our economics and the downturn and the really, really serious condition that India sees itself in. Right? And just let's see what Lekha Chakraborty and Emmanuel Thomas write. He says, loosen the purse strings with limitations on monetary policy. A fiscal push is crucial for sustained growth recovery. The second advanced estimate of national income for the year 2021, estimated at rupees 134 trillion, is a contraction of 8% from the first revised estimate of 145.69 trillion in 1920. It is also way below the second revised estimate of 140 trillion in 1819. But it is going to take a while for the economy to reach where it was before the pandemic. Even after reaching those levels, the slow growth rate is going to hurt. It will hurt those in the informal and the MSME sector the most. The income loss for them is significant. This is what we can make out from the continuing contraction of private final consumption expenditure in the third quarter too. The lost jobs in these sectors are not going to be restored automatically. The government is expecting that a new investment cycle will start soon, but it is unlikely in the presence of significant excess capacity in many sectors. Remember this, right? And then, like I said, if this government keeps going after credit and extending credit and loans, but then concerns about credit. As borrowers and lenders turn away, banks will have to build capital buffers to withstand COVID shock lent to economy. The economic shock from the pandemic will add greater pressure to bank balance sheets. The central bank now expects bad loans to rise to 13.5% by September 21, up from 7.5% in September 20 in its baseline scenario. Under more severe condition, this may deteriorate to almost 15%. Just scoring the need to build adequate capital buffers to withstand this shock. Also in trouble, folks. And get India to be worldly wise is what we are saying. It is imperative that India turns to global private money to resolve its debt woes. Estimated indicate that it's about 30 trillion available for investments, negative or low interest rates globally. Out of this, India has only got 57 billion. China, despite its negative, has got 163 billion. India's economists need to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to get a lion's share of global investment, which we are not doing. Like I said, hubris. True, India is open for business, but by how much? India continues to languish in the middle of the global ease of doing business, and then you have the stupidity, Sitaraman, we will fight a case against Vodafone, we will fight a case against Kane. How stupid is that? And then, as Arvind Pralagya writes, self-sufficiency held India back and it's holding us back again too. The proverbial dualistic structure with capital concentrated in formal, capital-intensive sectors and labor in informal, SSI sector has continued to haunt India till date. Right? And then, this is a good move, but if it is not compromised by crony capitalism, which this government is becoming really famous for, between Ramdev and Adani and Ambani, SPV to monetize PSU lands in last lap. But I figure it's a big problem because you have culprits, criminals, dongis like this. Patanjali, Baba, Krishna Ramdev. He said, did Patanjali get 60,000 hectare Ruchi soya land overseas for nothing? We really need to put the light on Ruchi Soya and this Baba Ramdev. This government, who said it's not criminal, who said it's not corrupt. Crony, capitalist, and worse, corrupt. Cheers and Jai Hind.